This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 104 of the Rebel Author Podcast. I can't believe, so 104 means 2 years. This is officially the 2-year anniversary. So I know I have been entirely lax about celebrating 100 episodes. Now we're at 104 and officially 2 years, and I'm still, I haven't done it. But I do have some things in the works that I am thinking about doing, and I just need to clear the decks. I'm sort of blocking off next week to clear off a lot of things that I owe other people, and then I will have a bit more time for myself to create more content and things for you guys. But more on that in the personal section. So today I am talking to Jillian Yetter all about working with audiobook narrators. And if I say so myself, this is a darn good episode. I am very excited for this episode. I absolutely adored speaking to Jillian. So yes, I am very excited, and I really hope that you enjoy this episode as much as I did. But first, to last week's question, which was, do you have a 3-word rebellion or a tagline for your business? So on Patreon, Matt said, my 3 words are educate, inspire, entertain. I know that's possibly a little broad. It doesn't narrow things down in the way that you've discussed during this excellent interview, but it does allow me the breadth to do my children's picture books, which aim to entertain and educate, non-fiction course education, and YA/adult novels, which will hopefully entertain, and poems, songs, cards, posters, some of which will come under the inspiration section. On Facebook, Meg Jolly said, I have never done this before. I listened to the podcast, scurried over to Michelle's website, took the quiz, brought the book, listened to the whole episode again. Colour me intrigued. Great guest, fantastic concept, and I can't wait to deep dive. I don't have a 3-word rebellion, but I am trying so hard to distill what I'm about. I have threads and common themes in what people feed back to me, but I'm not there yet. Thanks for sharing, ladies. And what I will say is that in the book, she does have exercises. So if you are struggling, but you do have some threads, then I would definitely think about doing the exercises that are in her book, as she really asks the right questions to prompt you into thinking, like helping you think about the 3-word rebellion. Edwin Downward said, as of this moment, I don't even know where to begin. Nothing I heard sparked any epiphanies or otherwise pointed me in any direction to begin looking. I can say I've been burnt attempting this kind of thing in the past, which is no doubt clouding my vision. And I think it's interesting how you can have 2 people have completely different reactions to the same episode. So yeah, and I do hope that you find a way to find those words that help you find your 3-word rebellion, Edwin. Okie dokie. This week's question is, what is your relationship with audiobooks? So I used that phrase because I suppose I want it as broad as possible. So I guess, do you guys listen to audiobooks? If you do you listen to non-fiction? Do you listen to fiction? Do you only listen to one or the other? Maybe you narrate your audiobooks. Tell me, what is your relationship with audiobooks? Okay, so the book of the week this week is Some Girls Do by Jennifer Dugan. Dugan, D-U-G-A-N. This is fiction, and oh my goodness me. So I talk a little bit about this on the Next Level Authors podcast this week, but this is a young adult lesbian romance novel, and on the Next Level Authors podcast, what I say is that I am realising more and more that I have had some kind of disconnect with fiction for quite some time. And I didn't realise it until I spent some time reading young adult, lesbian specifically, books this year. Now, it's not that I don't enjoy straight romance or books with straight characters in it. I do. And I even ship some of the characters, and I want those things to happen. I want them to get together or whatever. But the last few young adult lesbian romance books that I have read, I have felt on a much, much deeper level. And I think that is telling me something, and it also shows me and reminds me why representation is so important. And I just find it interesting that that is the love that I have in my life, and so I guess I see myself in those books. I don't know, but I am definitely, I felt like an overwhelming amount of emotion reading the book in a way that I haven't felt for a really, really long time reading. And I don't know, I'm still not sure if it's because, it was two women, or if it was because it was just a really good book. I have a feeling that it's the romance, but I'm not sure. So one of the things that I want to do this next week is to create a list of young adult books that have lesbian characters or bisexual characters. I already have quite a few books with gay characters and trans characters, and I read and enjoy them, but I am noticing that it is a very clear difference with the way that I feel over lesbian or bisexual characters. So if anybody listening has a recommendation, whilst I will probably create a separate list for adult stuff, I am really specifically looking for young adult lesbian or bisexual books. So I would be really grateful if you do know them or you've read some. If you would message me on Instagram at Sasha Black Author, or drop me an email to the Rebel Author Podcast at gmail.com. I think it's actually just rebelauthorpodcast at gmail.com. I'd be super grateful, because I would like to create this big list to kind of do the reading as a bit of an experiment to see what it is that's drawing me to that. And I suppose the other realization that I have had based off of this is that I really, really need to write young adult, lesbian characters books. So I think after I have finished the Keeper series, that is all I'm going to write for a little while, just to see what that does to me and my mindset, my happiness whilst writing. And so I need to think about how I can change Murdering Magicians, because that was a woman and a guy originally. As I think you already know, that I've already changed the Scent of Death, so that is now LGBT. So yeah, I'm going to really look at how I can change some of the things that I've been preparing in the background to write, to see what happens. But yeah, this has been a very interesting thing. I don't know if anybody else who, maybe if anybody listening is marginalized, or if you there is something about you and you found a niche that you really connect with. I would really like to hear about it. I would like to hear about your experience and why that happened, what the thing, how it made you feel, why you think you connected with that niche so much. I don't know, maybe it's Danish books, or maybe it's, I don't know, mythology. I don't know. Just, if you have a thing that you have connected with on a really deep level, I would like to know why. So yes, as I said, getting back to the point, which was the book recommendation of the week, Some Girls Do by Jennifer Dugan. And it is a young adult contemporary romance about a girl who is a runner, competitive runner, and she has to change schools because her school's not accepting of her sexuality. And then a pageant, a car fixing like pageant mechanic so she does like, Miss America, those kinds of competitions, and it's like an enemies to lovers story, and there is a bit of insta love in there, but I really didn't mind it, to be perfectly honest. I loved it. I think I read like the last 200 pages last night, and I stayed up really late, which is why I'm so tired today. But I couldn't help it. I just adored the story. So yeah, anyway, I'm done rambling on this, but yeah, please do message me. I'll be really curious to see if anybody else has ever had a realization like this or an experience like this. Okay, so in personal news and update, I am in a giant book sale with some of my lovely fellow writers. So Jenna Morrissey is organising it, so her books are discounted, Keepers is discounted, Iona Wayland, Helen Scheurer, who was on an episode recently, Daniel Wilcox, and my very good friend Caitlin Duncan is also, her new book actually, Soul Taken, is on discount as well. So if you love, and this is kind of the remit of the group, so dark and dangerous books, dark fantasy, horror, dark kind of adventures and bloodshed, things like deadly politics, forbidden magic, forbidden love and romance, demonic creatures, fights for survival, soul reapers. If that sounds good to you, then you can find out more about each of the books at jennamorrissey.com/book-sale, and I will put a link to that in the show notes. So yeah, all of our books are 99p, and it's just for about I think it's like a day over a week, something like that. So in other news then, yeah, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I've been sort of having these feelings about kind of niching down genre-wise and writing-wise. And also, I'm overcommitted. So I'm feeling really cross with myself because, like, I looked at my to-do list this week and writing wasn't even on it. And I'm supposed to be a writer. So I am massively pissed off with myself. I've gotten to the point where, like, I can't really remember the last time I sat and wrote for, multiple days. So I'm thinking about just disconnecting from everything for a little bit. Like, even if I just did it for a week, I think it would really help me. So this next week, I've got to finish off some presentations. I've got to finish off the audiobook. I've got to do some freelance stuff. I've got consultations. Yeah, just like emails, a whole bunch of stuff that isn't wording. And I need to get all of that done because I am desperate at this point. Like, having these realizations about the stuff that I want to write is obviously making me want to write. And the fact that I've got... like so many other things to do is really frustrating. Of course, I'm super grateful and I'm excited to do some of these things, but I'm feeling a real pull back to wording. And so I just need to get rid of anything that isn't wording for a little bit, just to keep my sanity, I think. So the end of this year, I have this past week I printed out Trey, and I sorted out what was causing the block, I think, and I've got 2 chapters that need massive overhaul, and the rest of it is still quite minor. So I'm working my way through that printed document. So I'm just adjusting my sitting position. Yeah, so I am working through the printed document, which I don't normally do. Normally I do all of my edits online, but I just needed to shunt my brain into a different headspace, and that has actually really helped this time. I might not get all the way through the end of the printed document, just because now I have figured out the problem. I just want to go fix it. But yeah, anyway, so what else? This sodding audiobook. Oh my goodness me. I have learnt so many things. I really desperately want to do a roundup, like a proper mini episode on the audiobook, specifically just on the audiobook, because I have learnt so goddamn much. It is insane. So many mistakes, and I am going to be recording The Anatomy of Prose in audio once I've finished Villains, and I think I don't know, if I can carve out some time next week, then I'm hoping it will be done next week. And I think I've probably said that every week for like the last month, but genuinely, I have 5 sections left to correct, and then the corrections from the proofer, and then it is going to the masterer, and then it gets uploaded. So we are really, really close to the end now. But yeah, I will definitely not make all the mistakes I made this time with the Anatomy of Prose. There was one other thing. What was the other thing that I was supposed to be talking about? Yes, the Rebel Author Diaries. Right. So I have now finished reading all of the stories. We have finished, we did like a first round cull. Nobody has been notified yet. Actually, I was meant to notify people last week, and I didn't get round to doing it because we just wanted that flexibility, because there were a few stories that almost made it into the second round, and until we'd sort of read the second round stories, we weren't sure whether or not we'd want to bring them back up. But so everybody should be getting notified very, very soon, and actually probably by the time this airs you may already know the results. So that the second round got culled from, so there was almost 100 stories, I think, between 80 and 100 stories that got submitted. And then we culled it to about 25 stories for the second round. And then we're now at this current point in time down to about 16. And this is where it gets even tougher. So it was actually really tough. There were some incredible stories, and it was, you know, there was a mix in the original full amount, but even cutting down to 25, I would say there was probably another 20 stories that could have been, taken through to that second round. So wherever you are, whether you've been accepted into the anthology, whether you got through to the second round, whether you didn't make it to the second round, you should be proud of yourself, because every single story has been read. And we, in discussion with the other judge, we have found something wonderful in each and every single story that we've read. So I just want everybody to be very proud of themselves, and like A, for taking the time to do it, B, for submitting, and C, for the fact that we actually found something amazing in every single story. So that just goes to show that all of you are wonderful writers. And yeah, thank you so much for the honour and the privilege of getting to read all of your stories. I am very excited to take those stories through to the finished thing, and I will be contacting everybody in the next week, and I should then be able to give a bit more clarity on the timelines. I am reluctant to talk about publication month just yet, because all of the stories will go through developmental edits, then they'll go then those stories will go back to the authors to just tweak, and then they'll get edited by a proofer, and then there's formatting, all the marketing prep and all of that stuff. So yeah, I don't want to, it's not going to be this year, it won't be published this year, it will be next year, but I am not going to give a specific date just yet. Okay, I think that is probably it on the personal update. Bit of a long one this week, so sorry about that, everybody. Actually, no, I'm not. It's my show. I'll do a longer intro if I want. Okay, right. Anyway, Rebel of the Week this week is Mel. Mel says, I work in tech support. Over 3 years, my job grew to data admin, reporting, training, and managing the document system. I began to feel I was doing rather a lot, especially as the company doubled in size. Whoa. The company bosses said they wanted to add me to a new team. I got excited thinking I would finally get promoted, but no, they wanted me to do yet more work for nothing. I said, please change my job title from assistant then, because this is no longer an assistant role. They bewildered at me and suddenly being difficult and asked change to what? I did some research about what they wanted me to do and suggested analyst. The answer eventually came back no. I may do some things above an assistant level, but an assistant I would stay. No promotion. They didn't even want to credit me with a change in job title. Bastards. 6 months later, tomorrow is my final day at the company. Yay! Everyone keeps telling me not to leave. On Monday, I will be starting my new job as an analyst. They had their chance. I love this story. Fuck them. I literally don't understand why, like, that mindset around that bosses have. Like, if you have good people and it's really quite obvious that you've increased their workload, that you've increased what they do, why the fuck wouldn't you change their job title to give them that the credit they deserve and to keep their morale boosted? And like, do you not want people to work well for you? This is what I fucking hate about companies and corporate organizations, like treating their staff like shit. Well, fuck you. They lost you, Mel, and I am so glad that you are starting a new job. I think this is a fantastic rebellion. So thank you so much for sending that in, and for your lovely comments in the email as well. I really appreciate that. If you would like to be a Rebel of the Week, then please do send in your story. Please do. As always, we are always in need of more stories. It can be any kind of rebellion, big, small, or something in between. You can email your Rebel story to rebelauthorpodcast@gmail.com or Instagram me at SashaBlackAuthor. No new patrons this week, but a big, gigantic, squishy, love-filled thank you to all my existing patrons. If you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes, as well as bonus content, blooper reels, occasional random extra things, then you can from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. And there is still time to join me for the last little bits of Silent September as well. A big thank you to all of the patrons who have upped their pledge and joined the Rebel Readers group. So welcome to Scott Kavanagh, Jen Roundell, Herman Steuernagel, and Matt Goodall. If you would like to join the Rebel Readers group, what that is every quarter we are going to be reading a book together and dissecting it, and then I will give a mini masterclass dissecting what the author has done well, how you can use the tools and techniques that that author has used in your own writing as well. It's like a super high-powered masterclass based on the deconstruction of one book in particular. And this quarter we are going to be reading Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. Right, woo, that was a big old intro this week. Thank you all for sticking with me because trust me when I say this is a corking episode. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author Podcast. Today I am joined by Jillian Yetter. Jillian is a high school teacher turned narrator with nearly 3 years of narrating experience. Her bright personality is present in every performance as she breathes life into each story. Her vocal tone is warm, youthful, and engaging. She specializes in character voices and is well suited for titles with protagonists in their teens and 20s. Her primary titles are young adult, sweet romance, rom-com, children's, and fantasy, but she is comfortable with narrating a variety of genres. Her samples and contact information will be linked in the show notes, so you can find out more about Jillian by clicking those. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I asked you to come on the show by special request from one of my patrons. So a big thank you to Cassie for recommending you. And I had a lot of fun in your Instagram listening to all of the different voices. And like when you put on the princess voice, I was like, damn, she's good. Like it was so cool. So I highly recommend everyone goes and checks out your Instagram to see how amazing your voices are. Would you like to tell everyone a little bit like about you and your journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yes, actually, it was quite an unexpected journey, to be honest. I went to college to be an English teacher. So I got my master's degree in education, and I taught at a high school English classroom, teaching literature and writing and all that for 10 years. And it is to this day my passion. It is everything that I love in this world. And I can't stand when people complain about teenagers because I love them and I adored my job. Probably had over 5,000 students over the course of 10 years, just interacting with them and working with them in different ways, and I loved it. Unfortunately, in 2019, 18 to 19, I had several episodes of a chronic illness that we could not get maintained. And it's still not as well maintained today as I would like it to be. And I had to leave on disability, which was absolutely devastating because it was, my livelihood and something I thought I'd be doing for the rest of my life. So I found myself very bored because the life of a high school teacher is often quite exciting, and I was just home told to rest and get better, and there really was no getting better, but I was trying to feel better. And I actually, when I wasn't feeling well, started listening to audiobooks because I was a little biased against them because they were always used as a supplemental material when I was teaching for struggling learners. So I would provide them with the audiobook if they struggled with the physical book. But when I was in that state of unable to physically read the book myself because my energy just wasn't there, audiobooks really became a safe haven for me. Then once I started feeling a little better, I wanted to be a part of it. And that became a passion project for me as something that could help me link me to my previous life. And I love it. So I started really getting into it in the spring of 2019 is when I left my job and really just started doing this. And yeah, now this is what I do.
I love it. I'm like completely mesmerized listening to you as well, because although like I've listened to some of the samples that you've like sent me as well, to some of the audiobooks that you've put on various channels. And it's fascinating to like hear you talk naturally and to hear like the tone, but also your voice is so different in so many of the audiobooks. Like my mind is blown how you do that. And yet you have this really lyrical, lovely tone. I can't believe you didn't naturally fall into this like first. It seems, yeah, it's anyway, my mind is blown. Okay, so I think we're here to talk about narration, how authors should work with narrators, I guess like the processes of working with a narrator. So could you walk listeners through like a high level process, so from somebody wanting to work with a narrator through to like finished product loaded onto the stores? Like, what is a high level process?
Okay, all right. So I'm going to give this from my 3-year narrator experience with working it with the independent side of things. So it is very different when you go to a publisher. So I'm going to speak from an independent side of things, which most of my work, probably about 30 of my 36, 37 books is independent. So the first thing I always tell authors is to research the distributor. So if, sorry, so one thing you need to figure out is, who am I going to be doing this book through? And that's where I always say to look to start, because there'll be a different process with each place that you choose. Now, one of the most popular choices is acx.com, which is the Audiobook Creation Exchange, and it's made by Amazon. So it links directly to your Amazon profile. You get on there, there is a bank of, I think it's insane. I think it's like 11,000 narrators, which, no pressure for me. That's not terrifying, being up against 11,000 different people. It might be less, I might be exaggerating, but who cares? So once you get on ACX, they break down the process for you. Now, there are other options as far as distributors. You can go more independent routes. But for somebody first starting out, I'd say that's the first place to look, as far as to get the standard of what is the audiobook world look like, and what will this entail. There are other ones, Audiobook Unleashed, Spoken Realms, there's Find Away Voices, many others that you could research. I could send out a list if you need. And that's often what I do the first time authors contact me. I say, look for the distributor first. Then you're going to want to find your narrator. And it's great to be specific with what you're looking for your narrator, because the books that don't really have much detail about how the character sounds, it makes it harder for the narrators to distinguish, is this book for me or not? If someone says that they want a low range voice that's raspy, I'm not giving it to you. Or if the character's in their late 40s, No one's hiring me for that. I'm not getting that book because my voice sounds like I'm 17. So it's important to put that information. I do. I sound like a kid. And I think it's because I hung out with teenagers. I don't know, but I sound like a kid. So it's important to know what you're looking for. And then you can take two different routes from here. You can search for a narrator somehow, or you can use the tools on these distributor websites to find your narrator. Now, one thing I always encourage, if you go onto Instagram and you do #narrator, #audiobook narrator, we're all out there just trying to narrator thirst trap you, trying to get you to come in, listen to our samples, and you can get a pretty good idea of who's out there if you just go to a hashtag, because that's why I'm hashtagging my work. I want random people to find me. So you can go that route for looking for your narrator. You can also go the route of auditions and casting through the distribution websites where they'll post it up and narrators will flock to the work and we will audition and then you can just listen. So there's two different routes there. You can either find them independently or you can look through the distributor. Once that's all taken care of, I kind of take the reins from there. It really becomes my show. You give me direction, you're the director, you give me a heads up what you want, what you're looking for, and maybe an idea of the different character voices and attitude. That I send out a worksheet for that when I'm first started. And then I take it, do like a 15-minute sample, send it back to you, say, hey, does this sound good? You tell me yes or no, what you want to change, if there's any production issues or pronunciation issues. And then I take it from there. And I just go and I do the voices and I do the characters, and it's up to the author how involved they want to be at this point in the process. So a lot of times you just kind of throw your hands up and say, all right, I trust you. It's hard to do, but here you go. Here's my book. Do your thing. And then at the end, you listen to it. There are some people who like periodically to receive chapters or who want to hear sound bites for the different characters' voices. That's one thing I like to do is send, here's a soundbite for every single character I'm going to do. Does that sound like it fits? For a recent book, I said I did a voice and it sounded more like an Al Pacino. And they came back to me, that the author came back to me and said, I was thinking more Tyler Durden from Fight Club. And I was like, enough said. Like, you're just, you don't know where I've been, Lou. I was like, so like, a little bit higher pitched and kind of like manic in the way he speaks and less like calculated. So that was really helpful feedback for me moving forward. Then I posted up. I handle everything as far as I proof it. So I go through, make sure it matches exactly what it's supposed to be. I do all the recording. I do all the editing. For my first 30 books, I edited everything myself, which was quite a learning curve because I did not know that was part of the job. So I thought an hour of audio was an hour of work, but it's not. It's more like 5 or 6 hours of work when it's all said and done. And then recently I started outsourcing. So that is something that I make clients aware. Hey, I outsource the audio editing. This much of the fee goes towards him. And you know what? It's just better than what I used to do by myself. I can do it fine, but it's just better. And then he kicks it back to me. He also proofs it. So it's already been through 2 proofers at this point. Then we give it to you. You listen over it, give feedback, and let me know what needs to be changed. Hopefully not too much. There was one book where I said a name wrong probably 160 times. So that was unpleasant. So, but you know what? I'm good enough with editing that I was able to go back and fix it. And then, yeah, so from there, the distributors take over after you've approved, and I do my pickups is what they're called. So if you have changes you need to make, if you have edits you need me to make, I go on, I do the pickups, you approve or you give me more pickups, and then it goes through the distributor and the distributor will pass it out from there. And it's up to you whether you want it to be exclusive on, if you go through ACX and you do their exclusive option, it's Audible, iTunes, and Amazon are the only places that sell it. There's a few perks to that. There's also many downsides because for indie authors, libraries and physical copies of CDs, interestingly enough, are huge. So yeah, it's weird. So I just joined in with Audiobooks Unleashed. They're an independent distributor and they do physical CDs and they sell. And they're expensive, but they sell. People want those. So that's really where the distributor and the way that you share the rights comes into play. So
I
hopefully I didn't
am
fast talk that too much.
No, I am writing down a ton of my son is like interrupting. I'm writing down a ton of notes because I had no idea that people still listened to audiobook CDs. Yeah, that's like, I think my mind just blew a little bit. So how, like, roughly how long does it take from somebody contracting with you to you handing over a finished product?
So I give myself a big window because I do still struggle with chronic illness and I have children who never leave this house. Right now, I actually have a babysitter so I can be speaking to you for an hour
Oh.
because that just doesn't happen very easily. You can hear them in the background fighting over Pokemon while I'm recording and I have to stop and yell and whatever. So I usually give myself about a month to work on it. And that's a long time. That is a while, but that also gives time for my editor to send things back to me and for me to squeeze in other projects as I will. I think overall the amount of time I actually spend in the booth is probably about 5 working days total, but there's just a lot of extra that goes into it. If you can get on and you can give a narrator a 3-month window if you're not rushing, just to, get it out there, get your project in. If you don't even want the book to be done till December, but you want to lock in a narrator's schedule, you can schedule it now. I would love that. That would be fantastic to have it scheduled that far in advance to work around. Yeah, so
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful. So I just finished recording my first audiobook. This is like first person nonfiction. So it's like, it is literally written in my sweary, sarcastic dick joke kind of voice. So it would be very odd if somebody else narrated it, especially because I podcast. So I was like, I can't outsource that because it's so me. I don't know that anybody else would sound like me when they're narrating it. But oh my God, it took so long.
Yes, it does. And you even have the setup, you even have the equipment for it. And it's a lot. It's a lot.
Like, my wife made me a custom built audio booth. It looks like a phone box, like a retro old school like British phone box. And then like we carpet lined it, we put audio panels in it, all this like stuff. And yeah, the thing that I found the funniest is that the actual recording in the booth almost didn't take that long. It was the bloody editing that took forever. Yes. And like, I finished editing and I've got like, I'm almost embarrassed to show you like how many things I've got to go and correct. Like, I'm like, oh God. And I used to do voiceover work, for God's sake. So yeah, this is like not a small undertaking and you should all work with professionals because yeah, as a non-professional, it was hard.
And your investment into it probably was as much as it would have cost for a narrator. So, there's quite an investment with building that booth. And also, like, one thing I didn't mention was about the payment. Because when a lot of narrators are just first getting started doing these indie books, we'll take royalty share books, but we're not making any money off of those. And that's been a high expectation of a lot of people say, well, I'm not paying you hourly. And I'm like, well, then I'm not doing the book because I'm not making anything off of this. And it's fine in some situations. If I see a book is doing well, I might do like a reduced rate, hourly rate in addition to royalty share now. But I do know what I'm doing and I need to be compensated because like you said, like I said, it can take 5-6 hours per hour of audio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Like, my book is only 40,000 words and I think I've already sunk, I don't know, 2 full working weeks into it and I still have not finished. Like, and I'm really terrified. Like, I learned so many lessons about narrating and I made the mistake. So I started off standing to narrate. And then my knees got really tired because I was in there for hours. And so I put like a little stool in there, but it changed how close I was to the mic. And so I've popped a load of peas and I'm like, like, I literally probably have to re-record like 2 whole chapters, and I'm just like, oh, like there is so
And
many
you
things
don't
to
hear it while
learn.
you're doing it. You don't know
No,
you're doing it until you go back and listen and
I
you're like, well,
know.
this is garbage.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So like I'm gonna go back and re-record like the worst ones, and then I have to like listen to it back. And the thing is as well, this is another thing, if anybody like decides to do first person nonfiction, when you listen to it, you need to listen to it in headphones, because I started out editing on my computer.
oh,
Just
no.
I know, like it's so mortifying. I've learned all these lessons. Like you have to edit with headphones because it sounds different in headphones than so many lessons. Basically, like I am
So many
100% not doing my fiction. It's just too
So
hard.
that was like I learned all those lessons while I was doing my royalty share books in the beginning. And you know what? If I could have gone for an hourly rate, but the amount of time that I spent figuring out and re-recording and redoing, like, you don't have to compensate me for that time. That was all. That was basically, I should have took a course on this. I didn't know what I was doing, and then I did take courses on it because I had to.
Yeah, right. I did also not. I was like, yeah, I used to have an agent. I did like voiceover work. Like it's gonna be fine. It was not fine. Like it was trauma
Not at
trying to get
all.
this done. Okay, right. So, a few questions then about working with narrators. Like, is there any prep an author should do on their manuscript? Should an author like provide like a book guide? Like, what kind of stuff do you need to work best?
So, as a former English teacher, I think I kind of have a good process to myself, which I'll walk you through a little bit. And then also, like, how an author can provide that prep rather than having somebody do it, because everybody is not an English teacher. I made myself a graphic organizer worksheet to complete while I'm recording, and not everybody wants to do that. So what I do when I establish a contract with an author or rights holder, I will send out a welcome packet and kind of walk them through the steps. And, to all narrators, they should definitely send out welcome packets because not everybody knows what this looks like. And in it, there's a little worksheet to complete about, I ask, are there any words that you might anticipate my struggling with pronouncing, which I'll also go and do this myself. But are there any words that you can give me a phonetic spelling for, or that maybe could be interpreted multiple ways as far as how they're said, especially names? And then I ask them to give me just a few sentences, a few breakdowns of each of the main characters, and a little bit about their personality, the tone that they would anticipate for them, and kind of what's motivating them through the book. So I do ask that. I didn't ask that in the past, but that's something. It's just this little worksheet of, hey, here's some things that I'd like to go over with you. Then when I'm recording or when I'm prepping a book, I go through and I annotate on my iPad, and I have a little Apple Pencil, and I go through and I mark up the text, and I'm writing notes in the margin. I'm doing all that, and I'm highlighting each character's dialogue in a different color. So each character kind of gets their own color as I go through, and I make notes as I go. And then I go back and I complete my own version of the worksheet with any words that I might not know how to pronounce, or, any specific um, sections that I'm not really sure if there's like a speaker tag missing. I'm like, who's saying this? Or if I'm not really sure of what the tone of a scene should be, I might ask that. I also would ask the author to indicate, you need to have about a 5-minute clip that will be the retail sample. What do you see as being this clip? And if they can't come up with something, then that's something I'll keep in mind as I'm reading it. Oh, this page to this page might be a good clip. So that kind of helps me with getting started. So I have what the author says, what I say.
What
Then
makes a
just
good clip?
recently I added, sorry,
So,
go ahead.
so
Yes.
you're just talking about the clip. What makes a good clip? Just in case people like are thinking about that in approaching people.
So I'm talking to authors, and you guys are the ones who don't like to write the blurbs for the back of your books. So I know the feeling on that. It's that, but in the audio version. So it's something that gives you an idea of the protagonist, maybe as we're like fighting towards the like as we're going to like the rising action, going to the climax, maybe kind of getting an idea of what might be intriguing for this story. So the one that I'm recording right now, it's an apocalyptic book. It's really cool. Something I never thought I'd be recording. Very sci-fi sort of adventure. And the scene that I've pulled out is where the woman really feels the extent of the end of the world and the impact on the people around her. So it's not a high action scene, but it's really that like aha moment for that character early on in the book. And I feel like that really explains as she's looking around and she's in a hospital and there's, you know, medical staff. It's a very weird book that was written a year before the pandemic, but it's not a weird book, but it's strange that it was written a
Surreal.
year before the pandemic. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
because you know, the medical staff is dropping dead around her, and she's like, "What is happening?" Yeah, so it's awful from this pandemic that's occurring in this post-apocalyptic book. So I'd say it's where you can really grasp what this conflict is for your protagonist. If not, the first 5 minutes. Just the first 5 minutes of the book. If you really struggle with that, there's so many authors who are like, just give me the first 5 minutes. And I'm like, okay, that gives people an idea if they love or hate my voice. And but unfortunately, there's some books that I do multiple perspectives. So I always get cast in these books where I read from 5, 6 different perspectives, you know, 3 of which are men. And, you know, if the book starts off with me doing the perspective of a man, we won't usually do that as the clip, because you got to kind of get used to my voice and then get used to my voice in different tones.
Mm-hmm. So, like a selfish question, just because I'm super curious.
Sure.
Obviously, well, once so in books where there are lots of characters, you obviously
Mhm.
have to do all of these different voices. How do you keep track of, or like remember, or keep the consistency with all of the different voices?
So one thing that I've just started doing, because I didn't used to in the past, I could just keep track of them, but with multiple books and these books that go whole series wise, you need to be able to keep track of all these different voices. So I will get into character and just talk as that character for an audio sound clip and just like tell like, hey, this is me, this is my profile, this is a little bit about me, this is who I am. And I'll color code that to the color that they're highlighted in the book so I can go back and listen to it. Now I've reached a point where I kind of have like character names, like go-to voices. I'm like, and this is my Landon voice, and this is my Maverick voice, and this is this, and this is that. And I just kind of am able to jump over into that. But if I'm away from it for too long, then those sound bites really help. So I just had this little rainbow colored um clip of audio where it's just all these different characters introducing themselves and their personality. I've also recently started sending these to my authors and saying, hey, does this sound like the characters? And that's where I got the feedback about Tyler Durden, and that really helped.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. I am like, so as a sort of a teen kid, I did a lot of like acting and performing, and I'm like getting all giddy with excitement over like the performance factor, and that was the thing that I loved doing in the booth, was because to me it feels like a performance. It feels like you're acting in the booth almost. Even with nonfiction, it's still, you're still giving a performance. You're still telling like a narrative story with the nonfiction. But yeah, this is like, I'm excited. I love this skill that you have. I think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you. And I mean, it's something you could still do even if you don't do the editing part, because like I'm at the point now where I don't edit my own stuff. Like I just get to do the fun performance stuff that gets me excited and that gets me into the booth and takes a lot less time. So it's just fun performing.
Do you ever have to do different accents, or do you stick with American?
I do accents. I do. And I'm pretty comfortable with like a British accent and an American Southern accent, which I take in 2 different directions. I get like more of like a Louisiana and a more Texas sound. Um, I am working with other accents. I did one book where I was surprised that there was large amounts of dialogue that the author didn't tell me was with an Irish accent. And I butchered the whole thing. I destroyed that. It was not good. And someone just commented, because of course people, love to offer up their negative criticism about the book. Someone just wrote on Audible, like, never do this accent again. You destroyed it. The book is garbage. Like, they just completely, and people will, what did someone say? Someone once said, like, she has a screechy, disgusting voice. Ick. That was, I was like, okay.
That is so not true.
Lovely. Thank
I
you.
have listened to like many samples of your voice, and I absolutely love it. The thing that blows my mind is when you go from like, there was a more of a sort of like badass type female character, and then like I'd hop over to Instagram and I'd be like, she's literally a Disney princess. Like, how is that possible? Like,
I don't ever know what you mean. This is a new thing I'm trying. I'm trying to get some books with this accent. I'm just really trying. I want to do a bunch of children's books if they'll let me.
Oh my God, I love it. I literally love it. I'm like giddy with excitement.
Thank you.
It's so cool.
Thank you so much.
All I can do is like swear better. Swear better. Laugh harder.
Do you want me to do a few? You want me to jump to a few?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right, let me try. So I'm a stand narrator because I am very active. So let me see. Let me get standing. Okay. So I'm going to bounce between. We're going to start with Samantha. She's down here. She really doesn't know what's going on in this world. Things aren't going that well for her. And then we're going to switch to Harper because this is Harper and she talks like this. And this is the book I'm doing. She's just like this. And then we're going to go to Mark and he's nervous. Like he's just nervous. He doesn't really know what he's doing. And then we're to Fiona and she's right here and she talks a lot like this. And then we're going to go to Tim. And Tim, he is death embodied in human form. And then let's see, the angel of Gabriel. Oh, let me see if I can get down to Gabriel. Gabriel is down here. He talks from way down deep, and you don't really know what Gabriel's saying, but he has a lot of deep, massive power from his voice. Oh, I don't think I really got into the Gabriel there. I'm not really proud of that one. And then we just have my standard male narration where I'm Peter and I'm just going through my life and I don't know how to make it through everything that is happening to me. So those are the perspectives of those are the perspectives I'm doing now.
Brilliant.
And I don't know if I did them as much justice because my booth is hot right now and I'm not
Harper
really
is my favorite. Harper is my favorite. She was fantastic. She is very much like I imagine her in a teen YA, that sort of like rebellious, kind of kick-ass female protagonist. Love her. This was so fun.
Thank you. Harper's my go-to. That's my go-to when I do YA. She's close to me. My actual voice, the way that I'm talking right now, would be my rom-com voice. This is my romantic comedy voice. But I take Harper a little bit more down here because she's just kind of here. So we go down just a little bit for Harper.
Oh, this is so cool. Everyone's going to be like, oh my God, Sasha, calm the fuck down. But I'm just giddy and excited because I just think this is so
okay.
Cool.
I'm giggling. I'm feeding off your energy. I love it. You're getting me so excited about what I do.
You should be excited because it's awesome. All right. So one of the questions I want to ask is a bit cheeky, but what makes like a bad working relationship? So like what should indie authors not do to narrators?
First of all, don't tell me I'm not worth an hourly wage. So that has happened where people don't want to pay. And truth be told, you really get the book that you pay for. You really do. There are plenty of narrators out there who, are just starting off, but you can hear that they're just starting off and you get to choose your price tier of where you want this to go.
Could you,
And
before you dive into more detail about
yeah,
the bad relationships, could you give a range? So what is sort of the starting prices versus somebody who's super experienced?
so this is something that the union, so SAG-AFTRA, is really kind of fighting for. It should be no less than 200 per finished hour. And that's a basis. That's if we're doing audio, if we're doing engineering, if we're doing everything like that. Because I've had people on ACX offer me $40 an hour. That's not even close to minimum wage for the amount of hours that I'm putting into it. And that doesn't even, if I'm outsourcing, that doesn't even cover my engineer. So industry standard is hovering around 200 as the minimum. You might go lower, depending on the narrator. It can go upwards of 500. I'm not there. No one's paying me for that. But industry standard, that is kind of where we're talking as far as, if I'm going to make a living off of this, that's about where it should be.
Okay, so any other things that authors shouldn't do?
I guess over direct. One thing that you really need to trust, you need to trust the narrator that you're working with, that, if you did a beautiful job of building characters, building tone, building suspense, then as a reader, I'll be able to interpret that through my voice. I'll be able to perform it. I'll be able to bring it to life. So that's something that you really need to trust that your narrator is capable of doing, that they're able to, you're putting it into their hands and you can listen to it. But, nitpicking at the book too much, then maybe that's not the narrator for you if you have to nitpick too much. So that's where I think you have to really do your research with the narrator that you select and know that they're going to guide you through this process, because ultimately we hold your hand and we say, I got this, baby. It's okay. I'll help you. And that we are going to go and do the work that we say we're going to do. And I don't mind doing check-ins. I've had some authors who are just like, throw their hands up. They're like, we trust you. And then I have some authors who want periodically to just hear a few things. And I don't mind that. But if I have to go back and re-record whole chapters, or you tell me after the whole book is done that you don't like the way Peter is voiced, well, Peter's done. So like I did that part. So that's where you really have to, your role is really heavily directing before it starts. So that's why establishing that relationship and getting that information out there. If you want to say something to the narrator, say it in advance, or that's what that 15-minute check-in is, or 5-minute check-in, whatever it is, that first sample that we send that say, is this good? Do you trust me? And then you kind of pass it off to go with me.
Okay, and so like one question that I didn't give you in advance, in terms of like copyright and payments, can you just explain to listeners how the copyright, where the copyright will lie with somebody who pays outright per finished hour versus that royalty split?
So Royalties Split, if you go through ACX, then I don't know if I can speak to this, but I can collect half of the royalties, but I don't have copyrights to the book, if that makes sense. You still have, leadership over what's done with it. But I do have those rights, half those rights to collect the royalty share for 7 years. Is the contract for royalty shares. And then you can choose to extend it, or you can end it or buy out, or I'm not sure what happens there. I haven't reached that point yet. Per finished hour, it's not mine anymore. If you pay me and I do the book, the only thing that you're agreeing to is that you don't even really have to use the audio. If you pay me and you say, I hate this book and I don't ever want it to go to publication, I would be devastated and probably never work with you again. But I have no control over that at that point, because you've paid me and my work is done. Now there are some issues with, this is a whole different issue, but one of the fears in the voice acting industry is people can take samples of your voice and recreate it in its likeness. So, and make like whole bots based off of your voice. So that is something that in the contract, like you don't own the rights to my voice, but this piece that I've created for you from my voice, from my performance, I don't own it anymore. Now, as far as sharing on social media, I ask. So I say, hey, can I post a sample of this? Can I post clips? Some authors don't want me to. Some authors do. Publishers, no, I can't. That's theirs. That doesn't belong to me. I can't post because that's copyrighted material that they are in ownership of, that I can't give sneak peeks and use it for my own benefit moving forward. So yeah, so I can't post those samples if it's not approved, if it's not an indie author who approves it for me to do.
That's bonkers, because that would some people follow narrators, like they will read the books that the narrators narrate, and like that's just free marketing. This is why traditional publishers are crumbling. Okay.
So I think you can still post like the image of the book cover, because obviously Bookstagram exists, so you can post book covers, but I think it gets a little dicey when we're talking about the voice for the audiobook. So I've never put any publisher books on my social media.
Mad. Okay, so so you mentioned like series working. Is there anything different that an author should do? Any more information? Anything else that they should add when they're sort of coming to you and saying, I think I want you to do the whole series?
I think the most helpful thing is to have access to the whole series manuscripts in advance. So I'm working on a series now where I was, for the first 2 books, just doing one book at a time and reading one book at a time. Now I have access to all of them. You might find a detail out about a character, 3 books in, where they say that the character has a raspy voice and you haven't been giving them a raspy voice, or that their motivation changes, or that just any distinction that might change your interpretation of who that character is and how they're performed. So I think one thing that's really helpful is that. Now, you need to make sure that you're locked in with that narrator before you go handing out all your books. You don't want to just give free books and say, hey, here's, 5, 6 books just for your reading pleasure. But that is something that is very helpful. And the one author I'm working with now, he gave me, because it gets a little complicated with like the time travel in this sci-fi book. So he gives me like a note sheet for each book about, he gives me like a quick summary of what happened in the last one, how it moves into the next one, and a few essential details about the characters coming in. And that's been so helpful. That's been fantastic. Just having just the way that they all connect to each other. And then a general timeline is nice to know. If it's July and you want the whole series done in 3-4 months, chances are that's not happening. So timeline is really big about your expectation with that. And one thing I forgot to say about timeline is, once I send the book to the distributor, it can take several weeks to a month or even longer before that actually goes to publication. But as far as my end, I usually do about a month. So it usually just helps to have just the communication about the whole series rather than the individual book itself is helpful for me.
Okay, so I'm going to ask now a little bit about narrating itself. So, like, if there are authors who want to do like I have just done my own nonfiction, is there any bits of advice you could give them about narrating, and I guess like more on the performance side rather than the technical side?
One thing is definitely pacing. So, I'm a very fast talker when I speak, but you need to make sure your pacing is appropriate for when you're reading. People often go way too fast and then your listener can't keep up, or they slow it down to a pace that I just found out that people do this. People will bump up their audiobook speed to like 2 times its normal speed because they don't like how slow narrators read. So you really have to find that sweet spot of your pacing and what sounds comfortable there. The other thing that you need to know that we've already talked about is, how is this book getting edited? Are you doing it or is somebody else doing it? Because that completely gets overlooked. I overlooked that when I first got into this business. Didn't know what I was doing. And you need to know how it's getting from your book, your mouth to Audible, because there are standards, there are requirements and specs that your audio has to meet, and you don't want to find out after it's all recorded that it's not meeting those specs. So even if you just there are plenty of things out there where you can contact an engineer, send them a sample, and for like $15-20 they'll evaluate your sample and tell you. I just learned about this. They'll evaluate your sample and tell you what you need to modify in your booth, what you need to modify about your spacing from your equipment, what you need to do possibly in regards to editing. And so, you know, just having that, and even I know a lot of people who, when you are doing your setup, when you're setting up your booth, hiring an engineer to come in and look at your setup. So all these things that you can do.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I did exactly that. I hired somebody for an hour of their time to faff around with listening to like some of the samples that I did. Learned a very big lesson. This is so embarrassing. I'm like confessing all the shit that I fucked up. I had the mic the wrong way around.
Do you know how many narrators do that? There's a whole like forum on the narrators forum that's just going into like, hey, you want to know how to solve all those problems? You done 10 books that are backwards.
Yeah.
Wait, let me check, make sure mine's facing the right way. I'm like, oh my God, let me check.
It was mortifying. I was like, wait, what? Like, there is a right
and
way
it's
round?
those things you would never know. And so, you know, pay someone for their expertise. It's so worth it to save you the time and to give you an idea. And they might even tell you, like, you know, maybe try hiring someone to do this. Like if you can't get your setup to where it is, at least you like know that in advance. And so it's just really helpful to have that, especially from the audio engineer side, because they know what they're doing and they're so much better at it.
Exactly. I'm paying the same person to do the mastering. Just because I was like, there is no point in me doing this. What they did say is that they were very impressed with my wife's audio booth because the baseline sound quality or something, it was like so quiet.
Ooh, that's fantastic.
I know, right? I was very excited.
That's your RMS level.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there we go. That was it. Yeah. However, doesn't save me from the fucking barking dogs or the car trucks driving past. Nothing seems to stop those.
No, there's always like, so, and the noise floor. So like right now, I actually have my air conditioner on, but it's not going in here because it's not like a, you know, weather treated room. But I'll always get kids screaming outside in the yard, or I'll get trains, so many trains. I didn't know I lived so close to a train track. And so like I started recording, and it's just those vibrations come up from the ground and just sneak in there, and you're like,
yeah,
great. Okay.
Or the belly grumbles, which you think are quiet and they're not, because the mics are so bloody powerful.
No, oh my goodness, they're so loud. The belly grumbles, they're so loud. And then like whatever, like gurgle, sometimes when you open your mouth, your throat will gurgle a little, and you're like, what is that noise?
Yeah, I have like this, like, I don't know, it's like a popping, clicking, clacking type of sound that's like when I open my mouth, and I'm like, what is that? Like, and I can see the shape on the bloody waveforms. It drives me insane. And I'm like,
you really did get into this editing. You're starting to see the shapes, you know.
Oh yeah,
good for you.
Yeah. Well, it's easy. So like you see the, like when you make a mistake, I click, and so you see the spike, and you know where you've got to correct. And breaths all have my breathing seems to have all the same shape anyway. So like I'm always like,
no, they do. And the spit, like the mouth noises. I actually have a lot of mouth noises. And I know it's because of the medication I'm on for my chronic issue. So that is something that post-production, they remove it, because I have a spitty mouth.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. That's the one thing I'm like, I feel like I want to email, because it's taken me so long to try and get rid of it, that I'm like, there has to be a more effective way of doing this.
There is. I'll try to send you something.
Oh, okay, thank you. Because I'm
You're
like,
welcome.
should I just re-record? I know, obviously, like I listened to Laurie, someone or other, who did a storyteller, how to narrate something or other audiobook, and she was like, don't drink milk, don't eat chocolate, and I was like, but that, like,
no peanut butter.
Yeah, anything that makes
not much caffeine.
All the good shit, right? Just like basically be a saint.
Everything you want to start your morning with,
Yeah,
just don't. Like, they always complain if you're going to work with a publisher and they see you with a cup of coffee in your hand. They're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. What are you doing? Like,
Death
you
stare.
just made our job harder. So
Yeah.
thanks. Like,
Yeah, cheers for that. Oh, amazing. I have been so engrossed in talking to you, I've lost track of where I am on the questions. That literally never happens. Okay.
well, I'm enjoying myself.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I suppose, what are like the core mistakes you see either narrators making, or maybe lessons that you've learned over the years, or maybe authors making with narrators?
Okay, so mistakes. What mistakes? One thing that I can't harp enough about the sound quality. So even if you're hiring a narrator who just started and you've worked out a different pay rate than, one that I might ask for, when you get that 15 minutes, or if we're talking ACX, if we're going through the audiobook creation exchange, when you get that initial sound clip, I highly recommend running it through and seeing if it meets the audio specs of what ACX is asking for, or what the different industry standards are. And there's something called second opinion, second chance. Oh, I can't remember what it is. It's Second Opinion, and it's just this free plugin where or little download that you can get, and you can run the audio through, and it tells you whether it meets those specs or not. I use it on myself, and that's one thing that even if you don't have the most experienced narrator, or if you're doing it yourself, you just need to know, when I submit this, will they accept it, or are they going to kick it back? And that thing, it's Second Opinion, and I think it's by Stephen Cohen, I think is his name. He's a narrator, and he made it for other narrators, but also authors can use it. It's at your disposal to check to make sure that things are meeting those specifications, and new narrators to check to meet those specifications, because that's just important to have.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. There is another one with Audacity, I think it is. There's an ACX plugin that you can check with Audacity.
Yes, there is.
But it's always worth double checking the specs anyway, because I know that they do change over the years.
They do.
So yeah. Amazing. Well, this is the Rebel Author Podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
Okay, so think about this. I'm going to give you one when I was younger, and then one when I'm older. I don't have a specific story to tell, but when I was in high school, I wanted to go to a vocational school. So it was a vocational technical school where you learn a trade. And my dad made a joke. It wasn't a joke. My dad said, "Oh, you're not just going to school. You're too smart to go for cosmetology or something." I was like, "Well, you know what? I'll do you one better. I'll go for auto body." So I went to high school for painting cars.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So my husband, we've been together for 17 years. And my senior project, my last year of high school, I restored an old car for him and painted it. Just the outside. I don't know how to do engine work. I just made it cute. I just made it look good. And I forget that. So that was pretty cool.
That is very cool. That is very cool. I love that.
Thanks. And then I feel like I'm sticking it to my chronic illness every day, by rebelling against it and saying, "You're not going to hold me down. You're not going to keep me from a job. I may be on disability still. I may not be able to teach, but I'm getting books out there to the masses. I'm actually reaching more people, children, adults alike. I'm still sharing literature in some way." So I just feel like I'm kind of rebelling against that. It's exhausting and it's tough because I don't feel well a lot, but I'm really pushing through it and saying, I'm going to take control of my life and I'm going to do something I want to do. And so that's my little rebelling against chronic illness, because it's not great.
No, I love that so much. My wife has chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, and she still works, and sometimes it's awful because I can see in her face like how sick she is, and yet she also
it feels very much like, you know, shoving a big fuck you to the illness and being like, I'm not going to be beaten by you. And I love that fight in her. Like, that's one of the things I love about her, is she just keeps fighting and fighting and fighting. And yeah, like, all respect to you for that as well. So thank you so much for your time today. Would you like to tell everyone where they can find out more about you, your audiobooks, anything else like you would like to add? How can they contact you?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for having me. My website is just jillianyetter.com. So if you get on there, you can see my profile, learn a little bit about me, get some samples. There's several audio samples on there, probably about 13, and they're all labeled by different genres and what's going on in them. So it's real easy to access. Then there's an author page where you can learn a little bit more about, you know, how I work with authors. And there's a little form on there if you like what you hear and you're curious about, okay, how much would it cost to do a book and what does this process entail? There's an audiobook inquiry button on there where you can just click and you can submit that form. Or there's also a contact me, just shoot me an email with any questions. It's fine. Also, I'm very active on Instagram. If you just search my name, Jillian Yetter, I'll pop up. Lots of samples on there, lots of TikTok videos, doing different voices and everything. I haven't been very active the past few weeks, but I'm usually on there, and there's a lot of good information that way. So if you want to learn more about me, yeah, just type my name into a search bar and I'll pop up.
Fantastic. And I will, of course, put all of those links into the show notes as well. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And of course, a gigantic thank you to all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, as well as joining me for Poison and Prose evenings, listening to my own very sweary outtakes from my audiobook, then you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. And of course, a big thank you to everybody listening. I'm Sasha Black, you are listening to Jillian Yetter, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. That's it. I hope you enjoyed my giddy, excited, childish self, getting very excited talking to Jillian and all of the possibilities for audiobooks. I have to say, I have been practicing voices, and maybe if I pluck up the vagina of steel that is needed to share it, I might record some and share them with patrons. I'm not sure yet. I'm not making any promises because they still need some work and some development. But yeah, suffice to say, I have been practicing. So we shall see. Next week, I am talking to Karen Inglis. She is phenomenal. She is a children's indie author, children's book, I should say. Children's author. Oh my goodness me. What are words? Clearly, I'm very excited still. Anyway, I'm talking to Karen Inglis next week, all about how to market a children's book. It is a fantastic episode. She has a book. I believe it's the same name, I think, How to Market a Children's Book, and it was recently released, or the second edition was released this year, and she gave me a ton of ideas both in the episode and also after the episode, which I will talk about. These are some of these things that I want to do that are on my list that I haven't been able to get to just yet. So yes, join me next week for that, and have a good writing week. I will see you next week.
Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.